Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Book Blather. If you're new here, I'm Dave, this is Olive, and we try to have a little fun while we talk about bookish things. So today we wanted to talk to you a little bit about a book one of the books we read in February that we thought was deserving of its own video. And that book is The Death of Grass by John Christopher. This is a book we buddy read with Scott over at the Bookish Bryants. And the setting of this book is a future in which a non-human virus has rapidly spread across the world. So we want to talk a little bit about this kind of book. If you're familiar with this, either in its comic or television incarnations, then you're well acquainted with this sort of virus-based apocalyptic literature. And it takes many different forms. It's become very, very popular in recent years across mediums. Books, comic books, television, movies, and like I said, it's got various different varieties, right? Whether it's a virus that produces zombies like The Walking Dead, or Max Brooks's World War Z, or stories where the virus produces vampires, like Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, or The Strain by Chuck Hogan and Guillermo del Toro, or rage-based viruses like the movie 28 Days Later, or David Moody's Hater series, or some of these stories that it's just where the virus just produces widespread death, like Stephen King's The Stand and that 2011 film Contagion. And all of these books and movies, all of these sort of virus-based apocalyptic stories, which is sometimes referred to as pandemic fiction or outbreak fiction. These stories, when they're done right, the common thread in these stories is that it actually doesn't matter what version of this human-based virus takes place. It doesn't matter what the actual specific product of the pandemic is, because when they're done right, these stories are not actually about the zombies or the vampires or whatever the case may be. It is really about what happens to everyone else. What happens to the structure of society, and more importantly, what happens to the individuals in that society that are facing that kind of pressure in those circumstances. And this is one of the geniuses of The Walking Dead. It is The Walking Dead. If you haven't experienced The Walking Dead, some people just know that as that show about zombies. But the genius of The Walking Dead is that it is not actually about the zombies, right? The zombies, of course, zombies make a lot of appearances, but some people make fun of The Walking Dead because they're very slow-moving zombies, right? But it doesn't matter, because it's not actually about the zombies. It is about what happens to all the people that are living in that post-apocalyptic world. And what happens to this, not just the crumbling of society and any kind of structure or order and the lawlessness that ensues, but really what happens to all the individuals. When they're living under those some kinds of circumstances, what could happen to any of us, to our principles and our ethics and our behavior, and particularly not knowing how everybody else is going to change in those same ways, and the things that we're willing to do, the things we're fearful of in those situations. And so this is what the Death of Grass illustrates so perfectly. Scott and I both loved this book. This was first published in the UK with the name The Death of Grass. When it was brought to the US title was changed to No Blade of Grass. Why this always happens when they bring UK titles to UK books to the US and they need to retitle them, I don't know, because it seems to me the UK titles are always better. I don't know why they don't stick with them, but they renamed it No Blade of Grass in the US. And this is by John Christopher, who's not actually just his pen name. His real name is Sam Youde. And he's written a number of different books, including a number of science fiction books. So this book is probably most aptly described as science fiction, but it is also horror. And what this book illustrates really the point I was just making so perfectly, because what this book is, there isn't a human-based virus. What happens in this story is there is what's called the Chung Li virus, I think was the name. And this was a virus that killed crops. Basically, it wiped out all kinds of grasses. So it wiped out everything, wheat, rye, rice, everything, so that there was basically all crops were decimated. And this had a domino effect, because then now there was nothing for livestock to eat, so we would then not have any meat products and all of this. And so the virus starts in Asia, and it quickly starts to spread across the rest of the world. And the majority of the story is not really what is happening on a worldwide basis. We see some of that in the beginning, but really, we very quickly then start to follow some particular characters. And in the main character is this guy, John, who has a family and some friends. And so they live in London, and they have a brother John has a brother that lives up in northern England. Because the UK book, it's set in the UK. So his brother is up in northern England and has a small farm that is nestled in a valley that is actually just has a small little narrow entry that is easily like blocked off and defendable. So as they see this virus, that started in Asia start to spread, his brother is concerned, and his brother decides that he's I'm not going to give away the whole story, just giving you the setting. The brother decides that he is going to just forget about his normal crops, and he's going to plant potatoes. And he asks his brother John, to bring his family and move in to this farm in the valley where they can grow these potatoes so that they have food to eat, and that they can block it off, and they could easily defend it against any hostile forces when things start to go bad. And John does not take this too seriously. He's not too worried about it. So he stays in London, and his kids are off at different schools. And he has a friend, Roger, who actually he was a government official, I guess. And so he had special access to certain information. And at one point he comes to John and explains to him that it's dire. He's got some inside information about this, what the government is going to do, things that are going to happen in light of this virus now overtaking the UK. And so he persuades John that they need to get out of there. And so they decide to make a run for John's brother's valley. And as they do, its story is very similar to a Walking Dead type story, where you have a normal, principled guy. Actually, all of them. You have this group, but normal, principled guy that starts out just trying to get his family to safety. And as they go through this, this story mostly follows their journey north, and the different people that they encounter, the different towns that they encounter, and as news starts to spread and things start to happen, the structure of society starts to fall apart. And you see how different people in different areas are starting to behave, and you see the changes in John, who just unintentionally becomes the leader of this group that expands as time goes on. They take on additional people, some for better, some for worse. And he takes on this role. The group expands. They continue their progress north. Bad things happen. And you really see, very much like the story of The Walking Dead, where we start out with this. In The Walking Dead, we start out with this character, Rick Grimes, who was a sheriff, very principled, normal guy, the sheriff of the town. And you see his evolution over time, and the evolution of those around him, and the ways in which just circumstances force him to change, and how his character just evolves so significantly, and he's able to do things and accept things that he never would have imagined in his old life. And this story, The Death of the Grass, is very much like that. You're following this group of people, very much like The Walking Dead, where you see the evolution of this leader, and you see the evolution of the people that are with him, and what happens to the group over time, and the things that they're willing to accept happening. And it's put together so brilliantly, because in the beginning, there is some almost in sort of what I would consider like the style of old like Greek philosophy, where they're starting to debate these like ethical issues in just this sort of basic dialogue between some of the characters that we're introduced to, and about, should countries be sending food to Asia, or should they be keeping it for themselves in terms of what will happen, and why are we, bad things, we get very upset when bad things happen in this place, but we're kind of blind to bad things that happen in this other place. And so this sort of egocentric morality that we have. Topics like that, they're discussing, these characters are just having these idealistic conversations about them early in the book. And then they are thrust suddenly into this desperate situation where they face some hard circumstances, some hard choices. They need to accept some things that previously they had been discussing are not okay, right? And you see their evolution as they make this journey, and all this stuff happens to them. And I thought it was just a brilliantly done book. And this book is so perfect because it really does. It's a virus that actually has nothing to do with humanity. It has to do with grass, and it really just highlights that the whole point of the story has nothing to do with what the virus is actually doing. It has to do with what's happening to the people when they're in these circumstances, and the evolution of it is so good. The only issue that I had with this book, that I think Scott also had with this book, was that it was just it was a little too fast. Like this book, because it's not a super long book, it could have been longer. I don't often say that, but it could have been longer, because this sort of understandable evolution that you saw take place in the characters happened a little too rapidly, and everything kind of went to hell throughout the UK very, very quickly to cause these desperate situations. So the author could have taken a little more time with that, I think, and let that build a little bit more slowly. But other than that, that was the only complaint about this book. This book was really, really phenomenal. Absolutely love this book. I would definitely, best fiction book of the year so far. I know we're not that far into the year, but definitely the best fiction book of the year so far. Well, highly, highly recommend this. This was just, it was so, so good. It was so, so, so well done. The what it showed you, what happened to these people. So let us know if you've read this. We have a few more books that we read in February that we'll come back with a wrap up for shortly, but we just wanted to do this when we thought this deserved its own video, just based on the topic and how good it was. So let us know if you read this or if you're thinking of reading it. Like I said, we would highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet and you're at all interested in that sort of thing. So thanks so much for watching. If you don't have anything substantive you want to leave about this book or this topic, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji. She always likes to see those, right? What, are you falling asleep? You're always falling asleep lately, man. Come on, you didn't have any input about it. Did you have anything you wanted to add about this book or no? No? Okay. All right, that's it. So Death of Grass by John Christopher. Leave Olive a puppy emoji. She always loves to see those. So we'll see you very soon. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.